You one more. What no man can do, you have done for me. What no man can do, you have done for me. What no man you have done.
This is a special, shocking edition of the leadership class of the National Men's Summit, and I'm joined in the studio, surprisingly, with my Amen brother here, Pastor Dele Osunmakinde. He comes to us from the Baptizing Church, Lagos, Nigeria, and interestingly, this was just a sudden visit. And we decided to do this together. So we want to be talking about leadership, and this is a leader. I mean, a leader by all standards, either entrepreneurship or in the ministry. So we want to talk about leadership basically, and basically we're also going to be talking about leadership with regards to ministry, the church, and also every area of being a leader. And I'm joined here with him, and we're going to be sharing thoughts ranging from different angles about how that God has brought under us in different ways. So I'd like to give him the stage to start up this discussion, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, everyone, and I want to especially thank my brother, Pastor Shem Koka, for this impromptu opportunity. That's a great blessing. Like he said, I just came to Abuja this morning to officiate the wedding of the beloved daughter. And little did I know that I was being set up to do this, but anything for the kingdom of God and anything for my brother. So the angle I just want to look at it, I want to look at it through the angle of nation building. And I'm hinging that on some of the recent developments that we've had in our country, recent agitation, wanton destruction of lives and properties, and we all witnessed just less than a month ago. It's really making one to rethink the leadership paradigm in our nation, and of course to see whether we can ground any of these theories on empirical biblical studies. And that is what I've been doing, and I realized that over the years, we have a lot of theories, but the problem is that those theories are not grounded in empirical biblical studies, and people make it to look like the entire leadership thing about the nation is different from what God, extant provisions in the Abrahamic covenant and what we're dealing with in Christ. So I'm just going to read the scripture, and that will lead us into sharing one or two thoughts. Now the Lord had said to Abraham, as Genesis 12, get out of your country, from your kindred, from your father's house, to a land that I'll show you. And I'll make you a great nation. I'll bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I mean, in just those two verses, you see three keywords there: country, land, and nation. So that means God is saying that our occupation of the faith lane has got everything to do with our country, with our land, and with our nation. As a matter of fact, it's referenced and cited here that the greatness of every nation is on the faith lane. Because look at God talking to Abraham that, number one, come out of your country. So that means God is saying that it's a movement towards changing a country to a land, and eventually the land to a nation. And we see the three of them here. So we're now in Nigeria with respect to leadership. We see that we can't even really say we're a country. And yet we need to move to a land, and we now need to become a great nation. So, but you see, because we are talking leadership here, it's amazing that it was Abraham God was saying this to. And don't forget, Abraham was not a politician. So that means at some point, everyone on the faith lane must accept responsibility for the greatness of their nation.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, you say, we can even take it a notch higher. Because eventually it was not even about God making him a great nation. God now said, look, I have made you the father of many nations. So that means within the spirit of every believer that is on the faith lane is this leadership capability. God has given each and every one of us as a seed of Abraham to father nations. And if potentially we carry the seed to make our nation great, and much more, we carry the seed to father nations, then we cannot just fold our hands and allow our nation to be like this. That means it's a standard deviation. It's a departure from faith possibilities and dimensions for us to have this many believers who are by default already leaders in Nigeria, and our nation is still like this. Because the greatness of every nation, and you could see God started discussing nationhood with Abraham as a leader. So leadership in this regard is that we must understand that all of us have our faith walk, which is very, very important. And in most cases, this is the disconnect. People are believing God for Isaac. And there's nothing wrong in believing God for Isaac. We all have Isaac. Could be maybe somebody is believing God for his rent. Somebody wants to marry. Somebody wants to travel abroad. Somebody wants to build a house. Somebody wants to. But you see, while Abraham was expressing that desire to God, God made him to understand that that is too little. For you to cause God to partner with you. So the first thing God had to tell him was that I need to make you something bigger than the father of Isaac. So God now told him that I made you the father of many nations. Wow. So that means you can substitute that father for leader. Wow. That means God is saying, well, whatever is happening in the nations is up to you, Abraham. That means once you start believing me for anything and you're on the faith lane, leadership, fatherhood of your nation, and indeed many other nations, are already possibilities and dimensions granted you by God. Wow. So that is why we cannot blame us so long for what is going on in our nation. Exactly. I think we have overrated politics because don't forget the time of Abraham also, there were leaders. But how come the Lord did not give the responsibility to any of those leaders? He gave the responsibility to the man of faith. And like Jesus said, if you are the seed of Abraham, then do the works of Abraham. So that means everyone that is Abrahamic is the one God is holding in trust for whatever is happening in their nation. And if they don't realize that, and they think some politician from Abuja will fix their nations, I mean, nation now in this region, that's the kind of country we're going to have.
All right. As you know, this happens to be like a link to what I was talking about yesterday afternoon, when I was saying the truth is we should stop looking at the president. The gist is this nation can change even if I don't know, even if you put a moron on the presidential seat. The truth of the matter is that the presidential seat will force integrity if we do the right thing. And when we say the government, I kept realizing that the government we are talking about is first of all the people, not the president.
The government will be upon his shoulder,
not the head. So you understand? So that's
the shoulder is part of the body.
And the shoulder, exactly.
So the government is in the body.
And of the increase of his government, there shall be no head, and the head does not increase. So it really it shows us that the government is the people, and even when you say democracy, you say government by the people for the people. It's actually an indictment back on us to say we are the ones that actually, when you say bad government, then you are saying bad people, because we are the ones. If you put a civil servant that is in charge of even ordinary writing receipts, and the civil servant insists that he will not write fictitious numbers, the MD or the director or the chief CEO of that ministry cannot do anything except he fires that secretary. So we have several areas where we could actually enforce the right thing. And then we were looking at the testimony of different men yesterday, and people who could actually, until Nigeria gets to this point, we don't have a future. Until the church becomes the church on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then you saw that we are not the first persons that are going to do these things. We have collected batons from several generations ahead of us. The only thing I'm asking is, how are we handling the baton we collected from people like this? Let's look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 10. And Paul was giving an account of his ministry to Thessalonians, and he said, for yourselves, brethren, know our entrance in unto you, that it was not in vain. But even after we had suffered before, and were shamefully entreated, as ye know at Philippi, we were bold in our God to speak unto you the gospel of God with much contention. These guys labored. For our exhortation was not of deceit. Now, look, it shows that if we're going to have a new nation, leadership, the content of what makes men from the altar and the pulpit of the churches, and not just when we say pulpit is not just church pulpit. Even in terms of the Christians, the believers who are heads of departments, that's a pulpit. Somebody who is in charge of a team, that's a pulpit. From that, because you color what happens in the lives of all those young men and women under you. So it means that whatever content of speech you're trying to use to disciple or raise these people must be without deceit and of uncleanness or guile or in guile. These are things we need to watch out for here. But as we were allowed of God, so they were led by the Spirit to be put in trust with the gospel. So they understood that it was a trust. Even so we speak, not as pleasing men, but God which tried our hearts. If an average church leader or Christian leader has these guidelines, I'm telling you, and you are not a man pleaser, you can say the truth irrespective of whether the senator is on your front seat or not. We would not have a nation like this. It's not about voting for a Christian president. It's not. The nations that are good don't necessarily. There are nations who have a Buddhist president who are even better, by far better than Nigeria. So it's not about Christian president here. So for neither at any time used we flattering words, not once used we flattering words, as ye know, nor a cloak of covetousness. We're not looking for your money. You see, these are the things that as leaders we need to really pay attention to in our day-to-day administration of office. They said, no, a cloak of covetousness. We didn't use style to get money from you. God is witness. He was so sure of what he was saying to the point that he could say, God is witness. God is in my church every Sunday. He is witness. And of men sought we glory. Verse 6, neither of you nor yet of others, when we might have been burdensome as the apostles of Christ, but we were gentle among you. See the word gentle there again. Even as a nurse cherisheth our children, so being affectionately desirous of you, we were willing to have imparted unto you not the gospel of God only, but also our own souls, because you were dear to us. This is a leader. This is a leader. For ye remember, brethren, our labor, and travail. Sir, leadership is labor. Seriously, I remember when we was start this, I tell my wife, say, I'm sorry, you may not see me for the next, she knows because leadership is labor. Our labor and travail, for laboring night and day, because we will not be chargeable unto any of it. Now, I think the night and day is also talking about the fact that apart from ministering to you, we made sure that we also made arrangements for our upkeep, not to put it on you, not to put it on you, the work extra, not to put it on you. We preached unto you the gospel of God, not any other gospel. And look at how this verse 10. And I want to zoom in on this. Ye are witnesses. First, he said God is witness. In verse 12, verse 5, he said God is witness. And every 50% journey. Verse 5, he said God is witness. That is the first witness. God is witness. Verse 10, it's not just God is witness. Even you are witnesses. No. How only? I mean, this is the first time I've seen the word only. How only? You know, only. I don't know whether it's a legal individual, but it's a biblical. There was no way Paul
gently, justly.
There was no way Paul was going to describe this thing except to say holy. You know, but we know how deficient holy is in our generation. How holy. In fact, the word holy is a word that people are scared of. And because they are scared of it, they interpret it in many ways. They say, no, holiness is not necessarily what you do, not it's just a state, you know, something. How this if holiness is a state of righteousness, no problem. But how about holily? Holily is talking about how we behaved.
Instead of being holy.
How holily. For one reason I remember the scripture is the word holily. How holily. And one of the things you need to start talking about in leadership is how holily we were the head of department. How holily we were the senior lecturer. I mean, because you're not talking about churches alone here. Yeah. How holily we were when you were the dean of science. How holily you were when you were in charge of the contract. How holily. And he said, you are witness. You know, when we were doing a talk show on bringing people who have demonstrated difference, and then bringing lecturers, engine businessmen, and all that. And then we mentioned the name of one pastor who was a lecturer. And then we said, okay, this man is a reverend. Maybe we should bring him to talk about how he was different. One guy shouted, say, what? God forbid. Don't even try it. Don't ever try it. If you bring that man and you shut down your program, because that man, he's not, I mean, he has a lot of unholy, accounts, and how justly. Now, and look at the third one. Unblameably. Hallelujah. We behaved. So it's not just about the righteousness state of Christ. This is behavior here. He said we behaved. Yeah. We behaved holily, justly, and unblameably ourselves among you that believe. Yeah. How many people can share this testimony?
All right. So, thank you for that. You could see that Pastor who is focused on the intricacies, this is where the rubber hits the road. Because I tell people, just like Jeremy said, you were blaming the president, the husband that is not faithful to his wife, that's leadership failure. Because even in the home you are a leader, an husband that beats the wife, shouts on the children, you don't have a relationship with you, you come home, you are the lion of the tribe of your house, you abuse everybody. So you can't. Because what has happened over the years is that focus on church, but we have not focused on society. So you see, the gospel that is being preached now must be relevant at church level, and it must also save the society. So as we are saving souls, we're also saving the society, and you can see that is the responsibility God put on Abraham. Let me just share this, because it's important. It's going to give perspective to all the things we're talking about. Because God now made Abraham the father of many nations. And like I said, that means it will be an anomaly for us not to be able to father Nigeria. When within our spirit, we won't have the capacity of fathering the whole of Africa. Because God said many nations. Now, it was not time for God to destroy Sodom. But you see, in order for God to destroy Sodom, he needed to visit Abraham in his capacity as the father of nations. And God himself had to say, he said, how can I do this and not tell Abraham? Because I've given him that status as the father of many nations. So the question is this, concerning Nigeria, is God really speaking to you about his intentions for this country? Because from that story, you could see that God doesn't visit anybody to discuss national issues with them if they don't manifest their leadership. Because God said something about Abraham, why he even did that. He says, see that Abraham will surely become a great nation and he will command his household. You see, it is with advice. He will command his household to keep the way of the Lord, to do just and righteousness on the earth. So that means even God, just like Pastor said, God was witness. Abraham was here to do that, but God could see that the way this man is going, he will do it. So God had, on the strength of that, God had to say, look, this is the man that is going to keep the way of righteousness and the way of justice, and he's going to command his household to keep this way. So God came visiting, and look at God with the fury of a judge who was on his way to destroy. You begin to wonder, what kind of God? There are so many things to look at about God. But here was God, if you look at his itinerary for that, as prepared by Michael or Gabriel. By 12 noon, Sodom wiped out. By 12 noon, God was with Abraham, was eating turkey, chicken, and guess what? Abraham never used that as an opportunity to remind God about Isaac. That means Abraham had got into a level that the destiny of nations, those things are more important to him than his own private needs. So what we have seen over the years is that our messages are somehow tilted, towards dimensions that meet our personal needs. But only very few people have transcended.
This is a special
know that by the mercy of God, believers did prayer walks all across the cities in our land. These things could have escalated beyond what we saw. And after burning all the houses, burning all the public properties, where do you think they are coming next? They are coming for you and I. Anyone that has a semblance of looking good, driving a car, you are the next thing.
He had friends.
So see the kind of society we have created. But look at Abraham. When God now wanted to do what he wanted to do, God created that gap to show you and our responsibility in nationhood as leaders. Abraham now said, okay, God, supposing you find 50 righteous people there, would you still destroy the land? And to my great surprise, God was willing to bend for the sake of 50 righteous people. 50. And Abraham eventually stepped it down to 10.
Wow.
And for the sake of 10. So therefore, and this is it, God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, not because of what was happening in Sodom and Gomorrah. God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because of what he could not find in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Wow.
So it was
not because of what he found,
not what he did not find. He did not find 10 righteous people. So that means now Abraham opened up another dimension for us about God. It does not matter how doomed the nation is. Believers can take their rightful place up, their righteous capital before God. You see, righteousness exalts a nation. God is willing to take another look. So just like Pastor said, it doesn't matter who is the president of this nation. Because the truth about the matter is even when the Bible is already referenced and cited, people like Solomon, people like Saul, who had the best opportunity to have emerged the best of the best, messed things up. So look at Solomon, for example, now. So if you are blaming leaders in contemporary times, how about Solomon? Look at what led to his ordination, how he emerged as king. God gave him wisdom. Look at Saul, God gave him another heart. He left Samuel. Samuel said, shall come to pass, when you leave me, this sign shall come to pass, do as occasion serve you, for God is with you. And Bible said, God gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass. Both of them bleed big time. So you could say, but did God still achieve his purpose? Yes, he did. But you see, look at Caesar Augustus that made a decree. Caesar never knew there was a prophet hanging in Micah that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. He just wanted to increase VAT and told everyone to go back to their local government to go register. And because Mary was pregnant, so it was a draconian legislation that enforced that regard God to achieve his purpose. Look at Nebuchadnezzar, look at Cyrus. You see, he was an hidden king. Even in Isaiah 45, God himself said that whose right hand have holding to subdue us. He said, I'm going to do what for you. You do not know me. Cyrus did not know God. But everyone said that the prophecy by Mount Jeremiah might be fulfilled. God stirred up the spirit of Cyrus. And he made a proclamation. And that was the guy that started the rebuilding project. And he did not know God. He did not send God. He was not serving God. So, but what kind of prayer do we need to pray in times like these as leaders that will get the attention of God? This is not the time to emphasize our private needs. Because the less is included, the greater. Look, Abraham said 50 righteous people. So that means let's operationalize our prayer. So the kind of prayer God wants to hear from all of us who are leaders in Nigeria now, who are occupying any level of leadership at home, in the business field, on pulpit, or wherever, that it's prayer of negotiation. What do you tell God that can make God to bend? Just say, okay, Lord. So that means there must. Let me give us an example. What Abraham was trying to say, Abraham said, for the sake of 10 righteous people. So that would be, oh God, you remember 2 years ago you gave me a vision. I have not carried out that vision. For the sake of that vision.
And Nehemiah prayed that.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Hezekiah prayed that.
God will be like, oh yes. So you are ready to carry out that. So that means you are using righteousness to break God. Because that's what Abraham did. Abraham just said, if there are 10 righteous people there, you can't do this, God. And God said, yes, I agree, I can't. So that means somebody is saying, God, I have not been faithful to my wife. I have not been faithful at work. Okay, now I want to change, but I need time for the sake of this new assignment, for the sake of this new conviction. It must be well with Nigeria. For the sake of this conviction, don't let wanton destruction of lives and properties again happen in our land. And the Lord will say, okay, you are giving me a reason to beg because you are bringing forth righteousness as your strong case now. I don't have any choice. I won't allow bloodletting again. But you must also keep your own side of the wagon and do. But the amazing thing about Jacob is that it was in that same conversation without Abraham asking that God has said, where is Sarah, Lord?
Wow.
So you see,
so God met the need.
That's what I'm saying. The lesser is included the great. The moment Abraham started manifesting that father of nations, God now said, since you're already doing the greater, let me now meet. It was in that same breath. God now said, by this time next year, according to the time of life, Sarah will embrace his son. That is God was saying, now that you have looked beyond your own personal need to my own need, which is nations, you are involved with this nation. Now, for the first time in 24 years, I will not tell you exactly when Isaac will come. And also,
so there can be paradigm shift in the way churches focus on the needs of people to the needs
of the nation.
So when we move the people to meet the needs of God, then God will now meet the needs.
Without anyone asking, because we don't say, now that you are here, God, let me quickly remind you that I've been waiting for Isaac. It was God that initiated the conversation. So God said, because you are not the father of nations, you are ready. Let me share the other one so that I can. Another time where Abraham played that role as the father of nation was when Lot was rescued. When Lot was captured. They came to Abraham and they said Lot was captured. And this is where again, where the robber hits the road. How did Abraham rescue Lot? Abraham rescued Lot by praying. So that we can establish both sides. Just showed us that in Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham intervened. But at this other side, where Abraham had to mobilize his own private equity. These soldiers that fought with Abraham were born and raised in his.
You need to see that I was just there.
Oh, you are there.
I was about to just take that up.
That means Abraham. I mean, let's try to look at what was happening. Let's share that. That means at some point God looked at Abraham and God said, look at all these nations all around you. What they are their father. They are fighting. So God must have told Abraham, in order for you to survive the next season, you need to acquire military training personally. Wow. Because how did Abraham train 318 people, born and raised in his own house, if he himself never acquired the training? So that we're not talking about how believers now, by the Spirit of God, must begin to get trained in the obvious. See, it is not too much if God is asking you now to go and do a master's program or a PhD program or even a vocational training in community organization, social mobilization. See, we need to get the skill set relevant for the time.
Wow.
For that time, for Abraham, it was warfare. So if Abraham was going to survive in that economy, he must be a warrior himself. So let's look at Nigeria contextually.
Yes.
If a believer is going to survive in this country, you can't just have one stream of income. And I'm talking about income. You can't afford to be a mediocre. You can't afford to just, these are the times in which you need to really listen to the Holy Spirit and to know when to change profession, vocation. So Abraham suddenly,
or to learn a new skill,
started learning military training, learned it so much, he transferred it to 318 people, and it didn't make sense. Because
come to think of it, Abraham was a shepherd.
That's what I'm saying, that he was never a military man, but that was what was needed for that season. So they kept on training until one day, the training makes sense. You see, that's another secret there. What are you doing in your closet that the day is needed in the nation, you won't need to prepare? So that means Abraham was already training these guys. They were preparing for war in the time of peace. They were preparing until one day they just came. Lot has been captured. Abraham mobilized them immediately. So for nation building, we're not talking politics here. Because see, nation building is bigger than politics. In most cases, we focus on politics, which is the shorter end of the stick. The nation building is the prerogative of every seed of Abraham. So what is on private equity? What are you doing in the closet? That one day there's now that need in the nation. You will even need to think twice. It could be something a paper project you'll be working on, a proposal you have developed, an idea the Holy Spirit has given you that you brooded on over time, and it's now ready. You are just waiting for an opportunity, and suddenly the governor of Ogun State says, we have this need, and quickly be filing that paper. So Abraham mobilized his forces, and guess what? Lot was rescued. Lot is the name of the project, ladies and gentlemen, because Peter now described Lot as that righteous man vexing his own righteous soul. This environment is making a lot of righteous people to vex. Let me say it in PG. People, they vex. Because, you could see what happened in the you see that people are vexed. So the Bible now describes Lot as that righteous man, vexing his righteous soul daily. So the greatest, on social media everywhere, vexing. The greatest manifestation of faith that Abraham also manifested there as a leader was to train others. So who are you training today? If many of us have taken it upon ourselves to train those boys on the streets, they won't be burning everywhere. So you see that it's failure across the board. We don't have them in our neighborhood, but they don't matter to us because they didn't go to school, they don't speak our English. So Abraham was here to have Isaac, and he was training the sons of other people. So you can see the mindset of Abraham that, look, I'm still waiting to have my own son. I don't have my own son, but this 318, I'm going to put something in them. And they went to that battle, and guess what? It was these people Abraham trained, just like David too, that made him to win the battle. And eventually they won that battle. Lot was rescued. Abraham defeated 5 kings. Let me tell you something. You think it's difficult to defeat politicians? It's not difficult. It is when every one of us is rescuing Lot in our constituencies, in our sphere of influence, wherever we find ourselves, in no time, as so long we line up. Because Abraham had to slaughter. In fact, I like the way Abraham put it. When Abraham was returning from the slaughter, you can imagine Abraham was in that position to slaughter kings, not just one, because he was the father of nations. So God had to honor that capacity that Abraham fathered this people. Stop this nonsense. The Lord should not be captured. And Abraham did not rely on the political order of his day to rescue Lot. Abraham rescued Lot privately as a private citizen who had equity because he has invested into the lives of others. And that's why I like a ministry like SOP. What we're doing, investing in the life of these young men, and these young men, we're raising an army. So there's a time, we're not talking to guys, so that people will not think we are inciting. The army we're talking about now is this guy.
It's not God.
But we're saying that the Lord is the weakest. I mean, it's not going at all. That means every young man that you lead, I will provide leadership too is a weapon in the hand of God.
Yes.
And one day we're going to mobilize them
Yes.
and rescue Lot. Imagine when Abraham showed up. I'm sure some of those kings will have despised him. Who is this one? I mean, we don't know you. But by the time, after all said and done, and now guess what, last point. By the time all that happened, God now made sure to honor Abraham. It caused a divine appearance. You see, we're in a season where there'll be a lot of appearances. Let's get ready. It's shocking appearance because it was no other person was given this honor that God gave Abraham, and that's the honor of meeting Melchizedek. Guess what? It was as Abraham was coming out of that battle where he went to rescue Lot. That means once we begin to walk in love, which is a great manifestation of faith, and what bothers people around us, because why will Abraham put his life on the line for Lot? The Lot really decided. Lot walked out on Abraham now. But Abraham understood that this is the real issue of leadership. It is rescuing others. So there's a rescue mission God has given to every believer that you must identify this season. There's a rescue mission. I'm saying that again. And at times it's not doing anything big. It could be on your street, 2 guys. You know how else would be there? Pastor was just coming over here. I saw some girls. So you see, at times we think of big until you do a big conference. You don't even know some of these guys who are smoking their alcohol around you, what their destiny is in God. Yesterday, I was listening to a testimony of Shino Rambo, the same Shino Rambo that was terrorizing.
Notorious armed robber. Wow.
Pastor. And he was sharing his testimony about all the operations he went to, how he wasted life. I know there was something he said that touched me. He said all those people that died, he's not even sorry for them. He said he killed them as an unbeliever. And he now quoted Paul. If you see how this guy, he quoted Paul by saying, I did it ignorantly and unbelief. But God has had mercy on me. So I'm in Christ. I can't now be, feeling sorry for any of those things. So one now said, what about all the people that died? He said, well, they died because philosophical, tell me that is their own job from God. Anyway, it's not that I agree or disagree with that. That is so. But I'm just trying to say that what if somebody had mentored or led, like Abraham did to the 318? Because this 318, just like the 400 men of David, could have been destitute to, could have set the whole place ablaze. But Abraham channeled that energy into the purpose of God because he provided training for them. So it could be 2 or 3 girls on your street. It could be a squeak on the boat. So that means we are all, by the grace of God, the faith lane, coming into what is called social entrepreneurship, coming up with organization with social mission, changing narrative, raising social values to solve social issues. That means our spiritual capital must also show in the social space. And that is what SOB is doing. You can't just we having conferences and meetings and we are not touching society.
We are not talking about the things people are doing.
So look at this. Melchizedek met Abraham and blessed Abraham. What a unique privilege that when that season where some appearances are going to be happening that are exclusively for us to lead us further to the purpose of God. And look at that Melchizedek pronounced that blessing of Abraham. It's a blessed be Abraham, the God of the Most High God, the person of heaven and earth. So it brought that Most High factor into it. Yeah. So that means he was telling Abraham, where you are now, there's nothing higher than this. This is the Most High. Wow. That means once your heart is towards the oppressed, the downtrodden, you want to correct unjust imbalance in the society, you want to eliminate institutional voids and barriers, your heart is in what is damaging the souls of people around you. You just connected with the Most High factor. That means that's where the heart of God is. And it was in that faith Abraham gave the title of us. So that means, really, I don't have a problem with people who have a problem with tithing. I think the issue is that we don't even know what tithing is. Because tithing is what you give back to God after you have conquered the sector. So a sector can be those 2 girls on your street. So it's making returns on investment. And you're saying, God, you have helped me to do this. I acknowledge you as a source. Even in tithing, as you're going to emphasize the fact that Abraham gave to Melchizedek. Abraham also gave to Anna, Escon and Mamre.
Yes.
Those were the guys that went
I was about to just highlight that when we are talking about justly the other time, because first I was just about to pick what you just picked, so I don't need to go through that cycle again. But I want to note because I'm focusing on the character of the leader. So you look at a man like Abraham, he has already highlighted to us that Abraham actually he acquired skill. Then he was able to train. Then he trained in his own house. So it's easier to train people outside your house because they just learn the training and not your life. But so those people have seen Abraham the way he was relating with Sarah. They were learning 360 degrees. They were learning marriage. They were learning parents. They were learning leadership, fatherhood. They were learning so many things. If Abraham was beating his wife, they were learning that as well. They were learning his life. Now he trained in his own house. Now in his own house, in our context, we not necessarily mean that you bring people into your home, but your life is so transparent that they can follow you and be safe. They can follow you morning, afternoon, midday, evening, and the night. Some people are only safe to follow in the afternoon. You can't follow them in the evening, and at night you can't follow them at night. The way they go at night, you can't follow them. So you can't follow them. So some people cannot be followed, at night. They were with Abraham morning, afternoon, evening, and night. They were with him. They saw everything he did, and he had so much capacity to train, to feed, and to take care. So he was even blessed because you can't. Having 10 people in your house, you know what it means in Nigeria today.
318.
Not girls, not women. 318 men. You know how men eat. 318 men. Sarah must have had capacity as well for her to be able to be the woman in the house with such kind of a load there. So you saw that there, and then they were strong. And he didn't just do that. He had friends. He had friends. People.
Let me just say something.
Yes.
This is a time where we have to work with people of other faith. Because Anna has called men who are not on the faith, but Abraham saw something in them, so they became confederates with Abraham. So we also have to understand that when it comes to the nation building, we need to shine this light outside of church. How on earth in the days to come with some of these guys to become born again? Because they've seen that associating with Abraham is a blessing.
And they've seen that Abraham has life.
And he has their interest at heart.
Yes.
Go there, and after they made it.
When you said he has their interest at heart, I wanted to note that when I noted this, and I was actually building the message on this before you came, that the Bible says that when the king of Sodom came back to tell Abraham that you can have everything. Now, Abraham said something about his dependence on God and his jealousy for God. Abraham said, as to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, the same language with which he was blessed. All right, that I will not take from a thread, even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that he's dying, lest thou should say, I have made Abraham rich. Now, this is just it. There are two levels of things Abraham said. I want to point the first one. He said he will not allow anybody, any human being, to have the audacity to be able to lay a claim that he was the one that made him. He was responsible for his prosperity. He was jealous over that area for God. He was jealous that as far as my prosperity is concerned, God will have 100% ownership of that right. Now you can't be begging. You can't be begging and begging and begging and be a beggar and be able to say this something like this. It doesn't mean that there were not hard times for him. It didn't mean he didn't need those things. It didn't mean those things would not have. So many. It just meant integrity that I will not go and start begging. And when we bring down, you see, this issue of begging is a matter that touches my heart so bad, because I know I have needs too. And sometimes you just feel you are the only one. Some of the people you are begging actually have bigger needs, because you see somebody sees you drive a Jeep, that you are a Mercedes-Benz Jeep, and then you are wearing a nice tie, like Dele is wearing a nice tie now, and then you just believe, this man has money. He has needs too. And I have, you might say, that's how the headache is directly to the side of the head. That's how the Yorubas interpret it. But you see, the truth is that we must eradicate this culture of begging amongst us as leaders. This guy was not a beggar. He was not covetous. Covetousness is wanting to grab everything. He was even a giver. Now he said, look, if you gave me these things, now he was being offered, and he had justification to collect it. But he said, if you gave me these things, one day will come. You will turn back and say, all this Abraham that you are talking about, it was when we went that I was the one. It was Sodom that made him rich. Now, so you might imagine that a civil servant has this kind of attitude that says, no, it's hard, you can take the money, lest you say you made me rich. And how many of us are actually victims of when we are trying to talk something righteous, somebody will stand up and say, I made you. How many people, if you are watching this broadcast right now, and somebody on this earth can open his mouth boldly and unchallenged can say, I made you who you are. I think you need to change that narrative. You need to begin to walk back on your life. God is jealous over that position, and Abraham understood that now, but there's something else he did. He told the guy, I am not going to take anything. But he did not impose his own consecration on the Amre, Eshkol, and those other people. He said it is their dues, and let them take their dues. Now, see, I will not impose my own consecration on the other people. I mean, they did it. They came by virtue of partnership. So that whatever they take, let them take their dues. And look at what he said there. He said, save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion. There is a portion of the men which went with me. And mention their names. Anna went with me, Eshkol went with me, Mamre went with me. These ones, they are not in consecration. They have their portion. And let me just say that a portion in our own contemporary times means percentage. There is a percentage that is due to Anna, and he honored the agreement he had with them. He did not break truce with them. He did not say, look, man, look, they had an agreement, and he honored the agreement. If we can relate like this as pastors, as leaders, as civil servants, as public office holders, we would take this Nigeria to a great height. I don't know whether you want to have some thoughts on that before we just round up this session.
Well, I think we've said it all. Let's accept responsibility for leadership. It's on all of us. What we're witnessing in our nation is failure across the board. So now that you've heard this, accept responsibility. You are a leader. And let that leadership manifest across the board. God bless you.
All right, so this is where we call it a day this morning. It's been an awesome session with you, Pastor Dele. Thank you so much for coming on set. This is a very coincident. It's literally, we've been like this from 1994, before 1994, but really, we gave an Christ 1994. So, I mean, it also shows the kind of people you connect with. Also can give a pointer to the kind of journey and destiny you're actually going to have. It's here we call it a day on the leadership class of the National Men's Summit 2020. God bless you.